President Nixon will deliver his annual State of the Union address to the nation.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, my colleagues in the Congress, our distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. As this 92nd Congress begins its session, America has lost a great senator. And all of us who had the privilege to know him have lost a loyal friend. I had the privilege of visiting Senator Russell in the hospital just a few days before he died. He never spoke about himself. He only spoke eloquently about the need for a strong national defense. In tribute to one of the most magnificent Americans of all time, I respectfully ask that all those here will rise in silent prayer for Senator Russell. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, before I begin my formal address, I want to use this opportunity to congratulate all of those who were winners in the rather spirited contest for leadership positions in the House and the Senate, and also to express my condolences to the losers. I know how both of you feel. And I particularly want to join with all of the members of the House and the Senate as well in congratulating the new Speaker of the United States Congress, Senator. And to those new members of this House who may have some doubts about the possibilities for advancement in the years ahead, I would remind you that the Speaker and I met just 24 years ago in this chamber as freshman members of the 80th Congress. As you see, we both have come up in the world a bit since then. Mr. Speaker, this 92nd Congress has a chance to be recorded as the greatest Congress in America's history. In these troubled years just past, America has been going through a long nightmare of war and division, of crime and inflation. Even more deeply, we have gone through a long, dark night of the American spirit. But now that night is ending. Now we must let our spirits soar again. Now we are ready for the lift of a driving dream. The people of this nation are eager to get on with the quest for new greatness. They see challenges and they're prepared to meet those challenges. It is for us here to open the doors that will set free again the real greatness of this nation, the genius of the American people. How shall we meet this challenge? How can we truly open the doors and set free the full genius of our people? The way in which the 92nd Congress answers these questions will determine its place in history. But more importantly, it can determine this nation's place in history as we enter the third century of our independence. Tonight, I shall present to the Congress 6 great goals. I shall ask not simply for more new programs in the old framework. I shall ask to change the framework of government itself, to reform the entire structure of American government so we can make it again fully responsive to the needs and the wishes of the American people. If we act boldly, if we seize this moment and achieve these goals, we can close the gap between promise and performance in American government. We can bring together the resources of this nation and the spirit of the American people. In discussing these great goals, I shall deal tonight only with matters on the domestic side of the nation's agenda. I shall make a separate report to the Congress and the nation next month on developments in foreign policy. The first of these great goals proposals is already before the Congress. I urge that the unfinished business of the 91st Congress be made the first priority business of the 92nd Congress. Over the next 2 weeks, I will call upon Congress to take action on more than 35 pieces of proposed legislation on which action was not completed last year. The most important is welfare reform. The present welfare system has become a monstrous, consuming outrage. An outrage against the community, against the taxpayer, and particularly against the children it's supposed to help. Now, we may honestly disagree, as we do, on what to do about it. But we can all agree that we must meet the challenge, not by pouring more money into a bad program, but by abolishing the present welfare system and adopting a new one. And so, let us place a floor under the income of every family with children in America. And without those demeaning, soul-stifling affronts to human dignity that so blight the lives of welfare children today. But let us also establish an effective work incentive, an effective work requirement. Let us provide the means by which more can help themselves. This shall be our goal. Let us generously help those who are not able to help themselves. But let us stop helping those who are able to help themselves but refuse to do so. The second great goal is to achieve what Americans have not enjoyed since 1957, full prosperity in peacetime. The tide of inflation has turned. The rise in the cost of living, which had been gathering dangerous momentum in the late 60s, was reduced last year. Inflation will be further reduced this year. But as we have moved from runaway inflation toward reasonable price stability, and at the same time as we have been moving from a wartime economy to a peacetime economy, we have paid a price in increased unemployment. We should take no comfort from the fact that the level of unemployment in this transition from a wartime to a peacetime economy is lower than in any peacetime year of the 60s. This is not good enough for the man who is unemployed in the 70s. We must do better for workers in peacetime, and we will do better. And to achieve this, I will submit an expansionary budget this year, one that will help stimulate the economy and thereby open up new job opportunities for millions of Americans. It will be a full employment budget, a budget designed to be in balance if the economy were operating at its peak potential. By spending as if we were at full employment, we will help to bring about full employment. I ask the Congress to accept these expansionary policies, to accept the concept of a full employment budget. And at the same time, I ask the Congress to cooperate in resisting expenditures that go beyond the limits of the full employment budget. For as we wage a campaign to bring about a widely shared prosperity, we must not reignite the fires of inflation and so undermine that prosperity. With the stimulus and the discipline of a full employment budget, with the commitment of the independent Federal Reserve System to provide fully for the monetary needs of a growing economy, and with a much greater effort on the part of labor and management to make their wage and price decisions in the light of the national interest and their own self-interest, then for the worker, the farmer, the consumer, for Americans everywhere, we shall gain the goal of a new prosperity. More jobs, more income, more profits, without inflation and without war. This is a great goal and one that we can achieve together. The third great goal is to continue the efforts so dramatically begun last year to restore and enhance our natural environment. Building on the foundation laid up in the 37-point program that I submitted to Congress last year, I will propose a strong new set of initiatives to to clean up our air and water, to combat noise, and to preserve and restore our surroundings. I will propose programs to make better use of our land, to encourage a balanced national growth that will revitalize our rural heartland and enhance the quality of life in America. And not only to meet today's needs, but to anticipate those of tomorrow, I will put forward the most extensive program ever proposed by a President of the United States to expand the nation's parks, recreation areas, open spaces, in a way that truly brings parks to the people, where the people are. For only if we leave a legacy of parks will the next generation have parks to enjoy. As a fourth grade goal, I will offer a far-reaching set of proposals for improving America's health care and making it available more fairly to more people. I will propose a program to ensure that no American family will be prevented from obtaining basic medical care by inability to pay. I will propose a major increase in and redirection of aid to medical schools to greatly increase the number of doctors and other health personnel. Incentives to improve the delivery of health services, to get more medical care resources into those areas that have not been adequately served, to make greater use of medical assistance, and to slow the alarming rise in the costs of medical care. New programs to encourage better preventive medicine by attacking the causes of disease and injury, and by providing incentives to doctors to keep people well, rather than just to treat them when they are sick. I will also ask for an appropriation of an extra $100 million to launch an intensive campaign to find a cure for cancer, and I will ask later for whatever additional funds can effectively be used. The time has come in America when the same kind of concentrated effort that split the atom and took man to the moon should be turned toward conquering this dread disease. Let us make a total national commitment to achieve this goal. America has long been the wealthiest nation in the world. Now it is time we became the healthiest nation in the world. Fifth great goal is to strengthen and to renew our state and local governments. As we approach our 200th anniversary in 1976, we remember that this nation launched itself as a loose confederation of separate states without a workable central government. At that time, the mark of its leaders' vision was that they quickly saw the need to balance the separate powers of the states with the government of central powers. So, they gave us a constitution of balanced powers, of unity with diversity. And so clear was their vision that it survives today as the oldest written constitution still in force in the world. For almost 2 centuries since, and dramatically in the 1930s, at those great turning points when the question has been between the states and the federal government, that question has been resolved in favor of a stronger central federal government. During this time, the nation grew and the nation prospered. One thing history tells us is that no great movement goes in the same direction forever. Nations change, they adapt, or they slowly die. The time has now come in America to reverse the flow of power and resources from the states and communities to Washington, and start power and resources flowing back from Washington to the states and communities, and more important, to the people all across America. The time has come for a new partnership between the federal government and the states and localities. A partnership in which we entrust the states and localities with a larger share of the nation's responsibilities and in which we share our federal revenues with them so that they can meet those responsibilities. To achieve this goal, I propose to the Congress tonight that we enact a plan of revenue sharing, historic in scope, bold in concept. All across America today, states and cities are confronted with financial crisis. Some have already been cutting back on essential services. For example, just recently, San Diego and Cleveland cut back on trash collections. Most are caught between the prospects of bankruptcy on the one hand and adding to an already crushing tax burden on the other. One indication of the rising costs of local government. I discovered the other day that my hometown of Whittier, California, which has a population of 67,000, has a larger budget for 1971 than the entire federal budget was in 1791. Now the time has come to take a new direction, and once again to introduce a new and more creative balance to our approach to government. And so, let us put the money where the needs are, and let us put the power to spend it where the people are. I propose that the Congress make a $16 billion investment in renewing state and local government. $5 billion of this will be in new and unrestricted funds to be used as the states and localities see fit. The other $11 billion will be provided by allocating $1 billion of new funds and converting 1/3 of the money going to the present narrow purpose aid programs into federal revenue sharing funds for 6 broad purposes: for urban development, rural development, education, transportation, job training, and law enforcement. But with the states and localities making their own decisions on how it should be spent within each category. For the next fiscal year, this would increase total federal aid to the states and localities more than 25% over the present level. The revenue sharing proposals I send to the Congress will include the safeguards against discrimination that accompany all other federal funds allocated to the states. Neither the President, nor the Congress, nor the conscience of this nation can permit money which comes from all the people to be used in a way which discriminates against some of the people. The federal government will still have a large and vital role to play in achieving our national progress. Established functions that are clearly and essentially federal in nature will still be performed by the federal government. New functions that need to be sponsored or performed by the federal government, such as those I have urged tonight in welfare and health, will be added to the federal agenda. Whenever it makes the best sense for us to act as a whole nation, the federal government should and will lead the way. But where states or local governments can better do what needs to be done, let us see that they have the resources to do it there. Under this plan, the federal government will provide the states and localities with more money and less interference. And by cutting down the interference, the same amount of money will go a lot further. Let us share our resources. Let us share them to rescue the states and localities from the brink of financial crisis. Let us share them to give homeowners and wage earners a chance to escape from ever higher property taxes and sales taxes. And let us share our resources for 2 other reasons as well. The first of these reasons has to do with government itself. And the second has to do with each of us, with the individual. Let's face it. Most Americans today are simply fed up with government at all levels. They will not, and they should not, continue to tolerate the gap between promise and performance in government. The fact is that we've made the federal government so strong it grows muscle-bound, and the states and localities so weak they approach impotence. If we put more power in more places, we can make governments more creative in more places. That way, we multiply the number of people with the ability to make things happen. We can open the way to a new burst of creative energy throughout America. The final reason I urge this historic shift is much more personal for each and for every one of us. As everything seems to have grown bigger and more complex in America, as the forces that shape our lives seem to have grown more distant and more impersonal, a great feeling of frustration has crept across this land. Whether it's the working man who feels neglected, the black man who feels oppressed, or the mother concerned about her children, there has been a growing feeling that things are in the saddle and ride mankind. Millions of frustrated young Americans today are crying out, asking, not what will government do for me, but what can I do? How can I contribute? How can I matter? And so let us answer them. Let us say to them, and let us say to all Americans, we hear you. We will give you a chance. We're going to give you a new chance to have more to say about the decisions that affect your future. A chance to participate in government. Because we are going to provide more centers of power where what you do can make a difference. That you can see and feel in your own life, in the life of your whole community. The further away government is from people, the stronger government becomes and the weaker people become. And the nation with a strong government and a weak people is an empty shell. I reject the patronizing idea that government in Washington, D.C. is inevitably more wise, more honest, and more efficient than government at the local or state level. The honesty and efficiency of government depends on people. Government at all levels has good people and bad people. And the way to get more good people in the government is to give them more opportunity to do good things. The idea that a bureaucratic elite in Washington knows best what is best for people everywhere, and that you cannot trust local governments, is really a contention that you cannot trust people to govern themselves. This notion is completely foreign to the American experience. Local government is the government closest to the people. It's most responsive to the individual person. It is people's government in a far more intimate way than the government in Washington can ever be. People came to America because they wanted to determine their own future rather than to live in a country where others determine their future for them. What this change means is that once again in America, we are placing our trust in people. I have faith in people. I trust the judgment of people. Let us give the people of America a chance, a bigger voice in deciding for themselves those questions that so greatly affect their lives. The sixth great goal is a complete reform of the federal government itself. Based on a long and intensive study with the aid of the best advice obtainable, I have concluded that a sweeping reorganization of the executive branch is needed if the government is to keep up with the times and with the needs of the people. I propose, therefore, that we reduce the present 12 cabinet departments to 8. I propose that the departments of State, Treasury, Defense, and Justice remain, but that all the other departments be consolidated into 4. Human resources, community development, natural resources, and economic development. Let us look at what these would be. First, a department dealing with the concerns of people as individuals, as members of a family, a department focused on human needs. Second, a department concerned with the community, rural communities and urban communities, and with all that it takes to make a community function as a community. And third, a department concerned with our physical environment, with the preservation and balanced use of those great natural resources on which our nation depends. Fourth, a department concerned with our prosperity, with our jobs, our businesses, and those many activities that keep our economy running smoothly and well. Under this plan, rather than dividing up our departments by narrow subjects, we would organize them around the great purposes of government. Rather than scattering responsibility by adding new levels of bureaucracy, we would focus and concentrate the responsibility for getting problems solved. With these four departments, when we have a problem, we will know where to go. And the department will have the authority and the resources to do something about it. Over the years, we have added departments and created agencies, the federal level, each to serve a new constituency, to handle a particular task. And these have grown and multiplied in what has become a hopeless confusion of form and function. The time has come to match our structure to our purposes, to look with a fresh eye, to organize the government by conscious, comprehensive design to meet the new needs of a new era. 100 years ago, Abraham Lincoln stood on a battlefield and spoke of a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Too often since then, we have become a nation of the government, by the government, for the government. By enacting these reforms, we can renew that principle that Lincoln stated so simply and so well. By giving everyone's voice a chance to be heard, we will have government that truly is of the people. By creating more centers of meaningful power, more places where decisions that really count can be made, by giving more people a chance to do something, we can have government that truly is by the people. And by setting up a completely modern, functional system of government at the national level, we in Washington will at last be able to provide government that is truly for the people. I realize that what I am asking is that not only the executive branch in Washington, but that even this Congress will have to change by giving up some of its power. Change is hard, but without change there can be no progress. And for each of us, the question then becomes, not will change cause me inconvenience, but will change bring progress for America? Giving up power is hard, but I would urge all of you, as leaders of this country, to remember that the truly revered leaders in world history are those who gave power to people and not those who took it away. As we consider these reforms, we will be acting not for the next 2 years or for the next 10 years, but for the next 100 years. So let us approach these 6 great goals with a sense not only of the moment in history, but also of history itself. Let us act with the willingness to work together and the vision and the boldness and the courage of those great Americans who met in Philadelphia almost 190 years ago to write a Constitution. Let us leave a heritage as they did, not just for our children, but for millions yet unborn, of a nation where every American will have a chance not only to live in peace and to enjoy prosperity and opportunity, but to participate in a system of government where he knows not only his votes, but his ideas count. A system of government which will provide the means for America to reach heights of achievement undreamed of before. Those men who met in Philadelphia left a great heritage because they had a vision, not only of what the nation was, but of what it could become. As I think of that vision, I recall that America was founded as the land of the open door, as a haven for the oppressed, a land of opportunity, a place of refuge, of hope. When the first settlers opened the door of America 3.5 centuries ago, they came to escape persecution and to find opportunity. And they left wide the door of welcome for others to follow. When the 13 colonies declared their independence almost 2 centuries ago, they opened the door to a new vision of liberty and of human fulfillment, not just for an elite, but for all. to the generations that followed, America's was the open door that beckoned millions from the old world to the new, in search of a better life, a freer life, a fuller life, and in which, by their own decisions, they could shape their own destinies. For the black American, the Indian, the Mexican American, and for those others in our land who have not had an equal chance, the nation at last has begun to confront the need to press open the door of full and equal opportunity and of human dignity. For all Americans, with these changes I have proposed tonight, we can open the door to a new era of opportunity. We can open the door to full and effective participation in the decisions that affect their lives. We can open the door to a new partnership among governments at all levels, between those governments and the people themselves. And by so doing, we can open wide the doors of human fulfillment for millions of people here in America, now and in the years to come. In the next few weeks, I will spell out in greater detail the way I propose that we achieve these 6 great goals. I ask this Congress to be responsible. If it is, then the 92nd Congress, your Congress, our Congress, at the end of its term, will be able to look back on a record more splendid than any in our history. This can be the Congress that helped us end the longest war in the nation's history and end it in a way that will give us at last a genuine chance to enjoy what we have not had in this century, a full generation of peace. This can be the Congress. This can be the Congress that helped achieve an expanding economy with full employment and without inflation and without the deadly stimulus of war. This can be the Congress that reformed a welfare system that has robbed recipients of their dignity and robbed states and cities of their resources. This can be the Congress that pressed forward the rescue of our environment and established for the next generation an enduring legacy of parks for the people. This can be the Congress that launched a new era in American medicine in which the quality of medical care was enhanced while the costs were made less burdensome. But above all, what this Congress can be remembered for is opening the way to a new American revolution, a peaceful revolution in which power was turned back to the people, in which government at all levels was refreshed and renewed and made truly responsive. This can be a revolution as profound, as far-reaching, as exciting as that first revolution almost 200 years ago. And it can mean that just 5 years from now, America will enter its 3rd century as a young nation, new in spirit, with all the vigor and the freshness with which it began its first century. My colleagues in the Congress, these are great goals. They can make the sessions of this Congress a great moment for America. And so let us pledge together to go forward together by achieving these goals to give America the foundation today for a new greatness tomorrow and in all the years to come. And in so doing, to make this the greatest Congress in the history of this great and good country.